The following podcast is a part of RadioMisfits.com. The Mr. Nailsin Show is brought to you by me, Night Knight. Head over to IndiePlanet.com to get your copy of the Night Knight comic book so that you can actually see me in action in my one-man war on crime. Shut up, Boo! God damn it! I do the announcements. Oh, God. No one gives a crap about Boo.
I'm party too. Not telling about me. False advertising. Yeah,
Stupid idiot.
I help Night Knight fight crime, and we blow stuff up and do a lot of damage. and of course, people get mad at us when we do. But
it's a war on crime, and in every war, there's collateral damage.
I mean, well, I guess it isn't one-man war because
Exactly.
It's a two-man war on crime.
Anyway, we're running out of time. Don't miss this opportunity to get your hands on the adventures of Night Knight.
And Boobo.
The Night Knight comic book available at IndiePlanet.com. And now it's time for the Mr. Nailsin Show. All right, time now for another episode of the Mr. Nailsin Show. Episode, I think it's 526, something like that. Anyway, I've got a lovely guest coming back. I had her on once before, a long time ago. Martina Markota, also known as Lady Alchemy. Sounds like a superhero name, doesn't it? I always thought so. And by a staggering coincidence, Martina published a comic book about Lady Alchemy. But first, welcome to the show, Martina.
Thank you for having me, Douglas.
This is my pleasure. So, when I finally got to read it, the thing that stuck out to me, I don't know how familiar you are with the comic book industry overall, but there was a line that DC Comics published called Vertigo. And these were all, I suppose, it initially came out of the horror genre and stuff like that, a Swamp Thing. But ultimately what brought it to prominence was Sandman and stuff like that. And then there was just a bunch of titles and went more into a surreal vein and stuff like that. And so a lot of Lady Alchemy, I thought, if this would have been published by one of the big two, it would have been that one. It's been destroyed by the usual current era, so it's gone now. But that stylings and whatnot is what it reminded me of.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, actually, I should look into that a little bit. Yeah, my comic book background is really from the 90s. I remember with dial-up internet, I was young and I would just it was purely visual aesthetics, and I would just search. I don't know what the search engine was at the time, Yahoo or something, and just look up the comic book babes. So there was Dark Child, Witchblade, obviously loved her, and I liked Rainmaker from Gen 13. Yeah. So any of the Gen 13, Gen 13,
right?
Yeah. But I like, in particular, Rainmaker because I liked, the ones that are brunettes and stuff like that.
Yeah, she was the brunette of the team.
Yeah. But the redhead was pretty badass in her own right. So I just really liked these babes, and I just thought that they were really cool, and I wanted to be a woman like them,
right.
Sexy and cool. But I never really got into reading too much about it. So it's really interesting now coming around from this angle of it and being around people like you and others that have more of a background of reading it. I find it really interesting, and I have some stuff to research and continue on the journey of comic book making. So.
Oh, great. So there will be further pursuits.
Oh, yeah. As long as I keep living. I don't know if you noticed this, but in book one, so there's this whole discussion. I don't get it. I don't really know what really is going on at the time, but sometimes I catch on my Twitter what's going on in the indie comics world. And then no one's had a problem with me being Lady Alchemy because I was, bringing back to life my performance character that got canceled, in New York City.
Right.
So I don't have that career anymore. So then I transitioned into I always viewed it as a comic book character. I mean,
yeah,
dressing up in costume, running around, basically Gotham City, New York City, I just always wanted to be like these babes. It made sense, and then there's the whole Nephilim thing that I was kind of a thing with my performing character and my inspirations, and alchemy is really cool. So, and there's powers to alchemy. So I always viewed it as a comic book character, and just being able to bring her back to life if I couldn't perform doing the comic book was yes, now it's all coming together. But then given what had happened to me in the industry, it kind of created you always need some sort of drama and storylines in a story.
Yeah.
And so, it kind of created that, because it didn't really have that when things were going good. It was just things are going good. How should this comic book go? I don't know. What's the struggle?
Right.
So,
in the silver lining.
It created a struggle for me,
Right.
and I got to interpret that through art. And I don't know what's going on in the indie scene, but everyone was cool with me portraying my real life and my real character in a comic booky way. I guess you call it a self-insert now, but to me, it is and it isn't, because I always viewed Lady Alchemy as a separate entity. It's kind of Lady Gaga isn't in a costume dressing up with her family and being I am Gaga,
she hangs out in the kitchen like that.
It's not really how it is. You view it in as a separate thing, and it's its own character that you've created, and it's weird. That's what being a performing artist is. So I view it as a separate thing, but then kind of what happened to Lady Alchemy and the story of it, I was able to take elements of real life, and I think a lot of creatives do that as well. I think there's been others that show that in the comic book industry, but also other films and things like that. I can go into examples, but I don't want to take up too much of your time talking. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
But basically there is real life that's interpreted in an artistic way, comic booky way, turned into a story. And so there is another chapter after that happened to me in book one. There was the second chapter, because the book one kind of represented, and you read it, so it's not very literal, and then I got canceled and politics, blah, blah, blah. None of that is in there.
Right.
But I was a performer, and things kind of went awry, and people that I was performing with and worked with turned on me. So it was interpreted in its own way. And, that was that chapter of back then. And now there's been a lot of other dramas in my life, and I'm excited to portray them in story.
It works very much as with typical in comic books is the origin story.
Yes.
So it is beginning. So I didn't know what your situation was entirely, or whether you wanted to pursue it further, and that sort of thing. So it could be a complete work unto itself, but it is open that, she discovers herself and all this stuff. And so what else could happen, of course, she's victorious at the end, but there's still evil forces.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, it didn't feel victorious in real life, but, when you have enough time to look back, obviously you need things to kind of wrap up in a story. So you have to kind of make it work.
Right.
Bill Gunn would say. But at the same time, there's a way of doing that that's not forced by stopping and looking back at that time period of my life, and then thinking, how do I resolve that, and, in the story, it was, an origin story. It was understanding, it was a change. So Lady Alchemy became Lady Alchemy, there was a shift. And I always feel like it really resembles the beginning of the book. She's a performer, stars in her eyes, hopeful, going out there doing her thing. And that's what it was like. It just seems like such an innocent time. And then by the end of it, it's kind of like, holy shit, there is stuff going on in the world. And I'm kind of caught up in some stuff. And I learned a little bit about myself and the world. And I'm not that innocent girl anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, and this is a thing that happens in a lot of different comic books. They call them self-inserts, but of course you draw on what you know and stuff like that. So there's a lot of, over the years, there would be characters and a lot of times had no idea. Yeah, that was based on this guy or that's right. Stuff like that would happen.
And I feel like a lot of people really don't even know half the time that actually occurs.
Yeah.
It's quite surprising, actually, when you really look into some stories and movies as well.
Oh yeah.
I was reading about something recently about what is it called? Fight Club.
Yeah.
Because I'm obsessed with this. There's a group in New York City that I went to a meeting actually, and they tried to lure me in. It's like one of those. It's not the Dianetics people, but it's like the Dianetics. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Right.
It was like that, but a little bit more business-minded, self-help kind of stuff. And I'm into alchemy, and I was young, and I was like, yeah, sounds interesting. Like, cool, I'll go to that. But it ended up being this like group called Landmark, and I've just always been fascinated by it because I sit there and think sometimes when I'm laying in bed, I'm just like, man, what is going on with that group? Like, it was totally a cult. What was has anybody been calling it out? Like, what's on the internet? And it's why I start searching, trying to find anything, but apparently they're very litigious. So they keep all that kind of negative chatter away somehow still. And, but I found a story about how the writer of, Fight Club also went to those meetings.
Oh, okay.
And Fight Club is not loosely. If you look at this article, it's actually very, very much so explaining this Landmark forum, but obviously in a very creative way. Right. They're not doing the literal thing, but the way that he inserted it and applied it. And because I know personally firsthand this Landmark forum, I was like, oh my God, I see it in Fight Club,
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of it's like it more or less might as well say it's a cult, even though it'll start for whatever. There's a thin line between cult and grift and things like that, can happen. And then some organizations, for the most part, it's harmless. It just depends on what the outcome is and all that stuff. But it's a lot of times, there's a lot of lost people and you can fall into something like that and that kind of thing. Yeah. But again, it's all great stuff for metaphor and allegory and whatnot if you're a creative in literature person, and of course comic books.
Yeah. If you're a creative enough person, you can take that and develop something interesting with it without it having to be too literal, but it sparks a little concept. So.
Right. And so, and that was always true of the superheroes and stuff. It was always, of course, and they're derivative of myths and whatnot. It was the same thing, over and over again, and lessons and, all that. Another thing you might want to, I don't know if this was mentioned to you as well, because by the end, and I won't spoil the book, but it was the appearance that Lady Alchemy takes on. And even before I had this in mind while you were developing it, there was a series of books called Promethea that Alan Moore had done. And that one, and especially the surrealism in it, and he's a guy who's obsessed with magic and all that sort of stuff. And he basically it's basically a tour book of his beliefs on magic and stuff that through this character. And, but she's very similar, in the appearance and whatnot. She, you could have had a crossover and team up. With that type of character. And also that it's like Promethea, this girl connects into this entity and it's sort of this avatar that's passed on from woman to woman. Or, of course, I think they actually, at one point, a man passed into, but nevertheless becomes this representation of the zeitgeist of the time and this sort of thing,
right?
Of manifestation of it as what she is. It was sort of the thing. He broke up the ideas and concepts of the archetypes of Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman and stuff like that. So you had these different, reimaginings of them. And then, so instead of Wonder Woman, it's this, goddess character who arrives and that sort of thing. And then she went throughout history and whatnot. But basically the angelic look and goddess-like appearances and everything like that was very similar.
I think someone's mentioned that. I'm not sure if I looked it up because I visualized the cover when you said it. Yeah. Or if I had it in a stash, because I know my sister had like a stash of comic books, like what is it called? The long box or whatever.
Long box, yeah.
And I was going through it because she was really similar. I don't even think she would read the stories. She just liked the babes on the cover.
The art is very beautiful.
So yeah, we were those kind of women that were just like, oh, she would pick a movie out just because she liked the cover and she liked the actress on it. That's how she picks movies.
Yeah. You're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but it happens.
I do too. But yeah, I've heard of that and I've heard references to that as far as Lady Alchemy goes. And I want to do some research, but I also it's weird, man. Like I have a stack of comic books that I have here that I need to go through just to help me with script writing and kind of how formatting and how the rhythm and how it actually is, because everything kind of has its own way. And I'm not a professional writer, nor especially script writer or comic book script writer. So I would like to kind of understand it a little bit more and read a little bit more about it and how it flows. But I also am afraid to do that because I don't want to get inspiration from something, because then I'm gonna be like, damn, I really want to do that. Damn, that's that's good. I wish I could do that. And I'll get really jealous and I'll be like, I really now I can't get that out of my head. That'd be cool. So I don't know. I got to be careful with it.
Yeah, it's kind of a means by which to navigate influences and whatnot, and that because you can look to inspiration from other things, but you don't want it to then become a pollution to your original concept or whatnot. I mean, I'm very you delve in almost to plagiarism,
right? I mean, I'm very cautious of it. I mean, I won't touch something with a 10-foot pole if I know something has been done before, because I just feel can't do it. Can't do it. Yeah. But then I'm kind of shocked by the amount of people that kind of rehash something in a concept. And I'm I didn't know you could do that. I would have, I would have done that too if I knew that that's allowed.
Right.
Or I'll see people kind of pull from my kind of thing. And I'm just well, screw you. I didn't know you could just take these ideas. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, though. I mean, there's multiple genres and all kinds of things, and a lot of them are very similar. And you can even have the exact same murder case in a detective story, but you got to come up with your original angle to it,
right?
And how it's solved. And a lot of times, maybe not even solved. It's like Columbo. That was the same show over and over again. It was just, but he was such a charming character. And he carries it, and then sometimes the villain could be really charming and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And that's it. The rest of it, who cares how he did it, who did it? It didn't really matter, stuff like that could play out in it. So you could continue on. I don't know what other genres you'd want to put her in. There's a lot of those that you could borrow from, but then still has all the trappings of what it is of the world you're creating there. Yeah.
I mean, I have my ideas, but until I'm ready to kind of put it out there soon, I don't want to put it out there into the ether. But but maybe in private, I'll tell you my ideas, and you'll be like, "Oh shit, cool." But like I said, it follows the flow of what happened to me. So before it was real life stage performer kind of stuff. And I'm just going to leave it at, if you know what happened to me afterward, what happened after I became a performer? I got involved in a lot of, other stuff. We'll talk privately about it because I don't want to give my idea away. But it follows in line, and I think it takes alchemy into a more modern and current way. Okay. So book 1, it was the making of origin story, and even though it was a thick book, like I had to get thick bags for them. Like they wouldn't fit into a normal size bag.
I'm holding it.
Yeah,
it's very thick.
It was thick, but it still felt rushed. So, with all my drama and everything, I'm happy with it, and it's the story I want to tell. But with having to redo the book after like 2 years of waiting for my original artist to kind of help me out with it, and then lawsuits and everything.
Yeah.
So I like kind of felt rushed because backers have been waiting. All of my haters have been trying to drum up drama that it wasn't done. And so like, I felt like I need to get this out sooner than later. And so I feel like I rushed a few things, but that's okay. It's my first time making a comic book with a lot of drama. I think I did a hell of a job considering.
Oh yeah.
And, I think that with book 2, I can, kind of continue on with any loose ends or things that weren't maybe elaborated enough, or ideas that didn't kind of expand further. Like I said, it's already thick. So I was like, I don't know how much thicker like it really can get. So again, this is why I want to read more of the comic books and understand how they work, and how they're written and stuff like that, so I can tell the story properly. But book 1 definitely had the like real life, old school alchemy. So it was about, getting into these ancient books. It's called Mutus Liber, which is an old book, from like 16th century, 17th century or something. And, it's an alchemical, it's kind of cool because it's an alchemical visual book, like picture book. So it's kind of cool because a comic book is kind of like a picture book.
Yes, right.
So there's a lot of like meta things happening in there, a lot of layers. And so it's an old ancient text, and it kind of digs deeper into the like old like archangel stuff and actual magic. There's the LBR ritual and like things like that. It's like the old school magic and alchemy concepts, and then going up into the upstate, leaving the city so that I can become in tune with nature and work on the laboratory experiments and do the transmutation and, make herbs and do, be with nature and all that stuff. So it's very old school alchemy. But book 2 is going to be a little bit more of a like updated modern kind of concept of alchemy and how it kind of fits into this digital world.
Right. Okay. Well, that's intriguing.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that, it didn't feel rushed to me. I think it's about the right size of it, because sometimes, it's just like, you're really into alchemy, but your audience wants to be entertained, and stuff like that. So I think it's just the right amount. And again, back to Alan Moore, there's similar things to that, where it would go off, and sometimes, as good as he is, it would like, come on, let's get back to the story. Whereas yours, you get enough there. And if no one knows about alchemy, it's not going to kill them to look it up and, get to understand. That's always a thing. And that's an old Stan Lee adage. Because he would use these big words and stuff in Doctor Strange and whatnot, anyway, those kids don't understand. Well, it's not going to hurt them to look it up. And what's wrong with that? That kind of thing, Yeah.
That's what I definitely wanted too, was, there are some people, I have some friends that have the book that said, hey, I really like how you included you know, the LVR ritual, or how you did this and how you did, and I'm like, cool, man, you get it. Like, you know about that. Cool. But if you don't know about it, it's kind of like a Harry Potter situation. I don't know Harry Potter by any means, but only because.
Yeah, me neither, not really.
Only because.
People are always surprised. Yeah, I never got into it.
I mean, I'm a bit too old for that genre. But the only reason I know certain things is because when I would look up alchemy stuff, Harry Potter shit would pop up. So I'm like, what is going on here? Hold on one second. I have to turn on the light in my living room. Why did that turn off? Oh, did you turn that on? Hold on one second.
It looks the same to me.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not on my app, so you can always just turn it on. Or let me turn on behind me. Yeah, no, so what was I saying? It's kind of like a Harry Potter situation where if you don't know about it, it is just an entertaining story.
Right.
But if you know about alchemy, you're kind of like, oh, I see what they did
the
there.
Extra layer.
Yeah. So there are sometimes things in alchemy that I'll talk about, and my husband will be like, oh, like in Harry Potter, there's like a Flamel or a Paranel or something. I don't know. I know there's a Flamel or something in there. And I'm
Nicholas Flamel was an alchemist who's
supposedly
and his wife, achieved immortality. Yeah.
And his wife Paranel is
yes.
even as much of an alchemist as he was. And I don't know which one of them are in Harry Potter, but I was told that they are. And I'm just like, you know that's a real alchemist, right?
Yes, yeah, that was the real guy.
You know, and then like there's other things that are like actual alchemy things that I've heard that are kind of interlaced in the story there. And I'm just like, I bet a lot of people don't know that that's like actually a thing. They just think it's a Harry Potter thing. So I think it's a similar situation that I'm working with. That's what's exciting about alchemy and using it as a medium for art, right? Is that it really is kind of like certain archetypes that are just really interesting, that are very visual and spiritual and like kind of digs deep in one's psyche. And even if you don't know about it, it's like you find it fascinating.
Right. I mean, it was always a very creative and artistic approach to these elements. And it's the bridge, like a lot of people look upon into chemistry from primarily like that, from a lot of what alchemy led to. But the bridge from, you know, mysticism, magic and whatnot into physical elements and whatnot and trying to achieve it. That's why, you know, Isaac Newton was interested in it and so on and so forth.
Leonardo da Vinci. That's how I got into alchemy, actually, was because I studied math, but I was also into art. And I loved Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci. Yeah. And Da Vinci was more than just an artist. He was like, you know.
He was a genius. I mean, clearly, if ever there was a man before his time.
Yeah, he was. We're not just talking about art with him. We're talking about, you know, everything. I think the military even
he was
hired
an engineer,
him to create, engineering kind of concepts. I mean, his use of optics and light and pigments and all sorts of stuff, chemistries. He was an alchemist. He was an alchemist. And so then when I kind of came up on this concept as I think a teenager or something, and I just always found, you know, the elixir of life and, you know, these kinds of concepts just fascinating. And I always thought that there was more to life than the mundane day-to-day tasks and work and then, you know, the boring stuff. And I was like, there's got to be something magical and fantastical about this world. And if these two geniuses believed in it so heavily, then there's got to be something to it, you know. So let me know what they know.
The basics of curiosity, you know, and how does this work is where it starts, you know, and they try to figure this out. And is this possible? Well, let's see.
Yeah, that's science. Yeah,
that's how it starts. And that's what they did. I had my own take, which I never got around to, and hopefully one day I will, which was the background of a a long sprawling epic of comic books lore there was a secret society of alchemists, and Leonardo da Vinci was one of the original members and that sort of thing. And they become the atomic alchemists where, turning lead into gold. Well, theoretically it's possible if you can manipulate the molecules and that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, in his time it was taboo and illegal.
Right. Yes.
So,
that's why they had to be secret about it. Yeah, there was a lot of that passed around. Like Isaac Newton, he was a devout Christian, but at the same time, he believed in these practices and he thought he could achieve something there. There's also the sad story that apparently too much mercury led to him having mental disorders for a time there until he recovered. But, sometimes you got to learn the hard way.
Yeah, you have to be devoted enough.
Right.
To the great work, to risk your life.
Yeah. Well, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, and such is the case. But anyway, it was a well-rounded book. I think it was a good start for you. And there was a lot of advantage for you in that, because I cover a lot of these indie comics because, well, the mainstream is pretty much gone at this point. It's just what are you going to do? But quite a few of them, and I understood it to a point at the beginning. Some of these people had worked in that industry and whatnot, and they were still writing in the format of the monthly comic book, where, you expect it to just be an episode and that sort of thing. But it takes a long time to put it together and get all this off the ground and get the funding and all that sort of stuff. So I thought you need to gear it more towards, sure, there's more, the story can continue and all that, but it needs to be a solid entity unto itself. And for the most part, most of them don't quite do that, and there's and sometimes an outright cliffhanger. Okay. 'Cause, movies will do it and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I always, it was just a pet peeve of mine. And sometimes, the art's so damn good, it sells it anyway, and that kind of thing. But for yours, look, I mean, it's a solid tale unto itself, and that sort of thing. And I think that's something to consider going forward, even for the second one. You've already got ideas for another one, but still, don't say, okay, to be continued, kids.
Yeah, I heard about that. And, I mean, it's not my bag. So I like to round my story out and finish it. Of course, the end always has my last page had a little bit of like a reflection, a moral reflection, a kind of thing that made you. It wasn't like, and then the story's done. It was just like, this happened and this is my reflection on it. And I feel like it does allow for something to open up. And of course, in the end, she ends up having that bookstore. So there's that.
You never know who will walk in there.
Yeah. So there's a whole other opportunity there. And the William character was based off of someone that was really dear to me. It was a grandfather of mine, but he's not blood related. He married my grandmother, and but he was very dear to me growing up, and he passed like 10 years ago. And so I made him, and he used to work at IBM. And he was also used to be a math professor. So we always got on about the math because I studied math. I was going to be a math teacher, and it's his bookstore. So me kind of taking it over, it allows like his kind of, it blends. It's going to go right into book 2. And everything that goes on, it makes sense because it's part of him, like I don't want to give too much away. So I'm
right.
Big, but I'll tell you later, like why I was headed there in my head. It made sense. But it continues on with William's bookstore and the things that he had in there and his real life kind of thing. And he worked at IBM and math and stuff. And it kind of goes into that direction. And it's really cool because, again, it's based off of my real life and things that are dear to me, but it's facilitating a story.
Right. And I read it. I would have told you that, like, you probably should have done this or that. But for the most part, I was like, wasn't really all that shocked or anything. I mean, well, the nuns.
That's also a true story.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Yep. So,
but yeah, I was like, oh well, look at that.
Yep. You know? That was an act that these bitches that got me canceled did, and it's really funny. It's really funny because that was their act, and then there was my act, which was an angel.
The angel, of course. So of course you were kicked out.
And I was like,
how dare you be angelic?
You know, so it's really funny how it's real life, but like it tells such a good story. And that's kind of what I was annoyed with my first artist, where he was portraying like backstage and the other performers in such a like mild, like PG way that I was like, dude, my real life was crazy. Yeah. Like, all you have to do is show that. Like, you don't have to water down for the comic book what my real life was. These people want to see. This is an adult book. Like,
right.
Let's just go right into the reality of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I said, the closest thing from the mainstream would have been Vertigo. This would not have been Spider-Man.
Right. It's not the kids.
It's not going to fit in with that. But anyway, so yeah, it's a good. Is there a way for people to still order copies or get them?
Yeah, okay. Of course. On my Lady Alchemy website, it's lady-alchemy.com/shop, but you can find a tab for the shop.
Right.
Yeah, I'll send them right out. They're there. I was bagging some up today, getting them all prepped in case there was any orders.
All right.
Yeah.
So don't miss out. Get your Lady Alchemy books today.
Yes. Check it out.
Are you still working on Magnum Opus Productions? Or?
So Magnum Opus is my LLC. It's like the umbrella for all of my Lady Alchemy works. So yeah, I do photography through it. I do the comic book through it. I do, if I have live performances, which I haven't had in many years, through it. Yeah, everything kind of runs through that LLC.
Okay, cool. So that's a nice little thing to have.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of projects and concepts that I'm working on. It's just tough with a 1-year-old because it's just like nonstop. I don't have a second. And then once he's in bed, I'm like, shit, I'm tired.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the baby.
Thank you.
It's a great thing.
Yeah.
And really happy for the both of you on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot, man. Yeah. It's been tough trying to even be together in the same country for the past decade. So it's really nice that we're finally able to be settled and kind of start a family and get it going before it was too late. So.
Right.
It's nice because I've got the biological clock. You know?
Well, yeah. Well, you beat it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll stop it there. And I want to thank you for coming on, and we'll do it again, especially since there'll be more Lady Alchemy coming in the future. And so we'll want to keep an eye on that and talk to you about it then.
Thank you.
All right. The views and opinions expressed during the Mr. Nailsin Show do not necessarily reflect those held by RadioMisfits.com. So, any complaints and or comments should be sent to @Mr. Nailsin on Twitter, where they will be promptly ignored and or blocked.